life that come to us. And then thinking about here are some things that I want us to think about. Tonight we're going to, hopefully, at least we'll get into it, we may not finish it. We're going to talk about overcoming. We want to be overcomers. When troubles arise, when difficulties come, the whole purpose of this is to be overcomers. And we're going to overcome this microphone problem, I guarantee you.
I'm not so sure.
Now, come on. Stay with me on the lesson there, Derek. We are going to overcome. I promise you, we're going to overcome. Okay. I'm going to stand just like this the entire time. All right. Some things that I thought about. One of the things that I want to talk about is what are the proper attitudes about trials and troubles? Sometimes I think we don't understand properly what they are about. And we hear phrases that I think say that we don't really understand things well. For instance, everything happens for a reason. Well, I just don't think that's biblical at all. And so we're going to talk about that. To say troubles are coming because you, or I could say to myself, I am being punished for some specific sin. That is not necessarily true. And yet we need to talk about also the discipline of God from Hebrews chapter 12. But now there are some appropriate comments and appropriate ideas, like there is value in the valley. I can say when I'm in trouble, there is value here. It is different to say there is value in the valley than to say everything happens for a reason. Those are two different things. Or we can say, evil comes, don't be overcome by it, but overcome evil with good. And so part of what we're going to do is to think about these appropriate or inappropriate thoughts related to understanding what trouble is or isn't. So if you have phrases like these that you would share with me that you have heard, then I'll include them in this class somewhere along the line too. Eventually I want to get to the point where we look at specific things and talk about how to overcome them. How am I going to overcome that?
We're going to try another microphone.
Well, now better way to start a class overcoming trouble than this. And I have full confidence in Derek when he finally gets to the booth that he will turn on that microphone, and I think it will probably work. It says song wave. Yeah? Okay. What I'm afraid of is I'll start yelling to be able to be heard, and then all of a sudden he'll turn it on, and everybody's hair will just blow back like this, All right. Keep on talking. All right. So we're going to talk eventually about the overall point of this is to say, how do we become overcomers? And toward the end of the quarter, we're going to talk about specific things like how do we overcome discouragement? Or how do we overcome loss? Or how do we overcome, and you just fill in the blank. So, if you have some ideas about specific things like that to which we can have practical suggestions to help people overcome, I would be glad to hear those topics, and then together we can work through how we can learn to overcome. So tonight I want us to talk about overcoming. That is the verse, Romans chapter 12, verse 21. And it is, at the same time, it's a principle, but it's also a definition. And what I mean by that, try to understand what overcome means. This verse is a principle. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. By that verse, he is defining the word overcome. How do you see a definition of overcome in this verse?
Well, obviously, evil gives us a challenge against something, whatever it is. So when we overcome it, we are sometimes getting rid of it completely. Sometimes maybe minimizing the effect of it. So I think there's different levels of being overcome.
Yes. Are there different levels of overcoming? I think so. But the point is, the word overcome means to put it behind you. To put it behind you. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean it may not still have an effect. Certainly, the consequences of whatever was going on will still be there. But to overcome means I am going on, and it's behind me. People who don't overcome, they carry it around on the shoulders. They're bent over. They sometimes back up. They take detours. People who overcome keep walking forward with this thing in the back. It's there, but it's not affecting me negatively to where I cannot live. We want to be overcomers. And that's what we're going to try to do in this quarter. Now, it is interesting to me that this word, overcome, is used in the book of Revelation more than in any other book of the Bible, of the New Testament particularly. Which, by the way, the word for overcome is spelled N-I-K-E. You know that? It is. And it's not pronounced Nike. It's pronounced Nikkei. But that's the word. I think that's where they got it. You want to be an overcomer? Wear our shoes. I think that's what it's about. So, let's begin talking about overcoming in 1 John 5. 1 John 5, verses 4 and 5. I don't like the terminology that begins the New King James, for whatever. I think is better. The word there is actually all. So, all who are born of God overcome the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, our faith. Who is he who overcomes the world? but he who believes that Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus said to his disciples, in this world you will have what? What? Tribulation. But be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. He describes it very clearly that this world is a place of tribulation. It was not intended to be a place of tribulation, but it has become that. And he says, in this world, that's what you're going to find. But, he says, I have overcome the world. What was his point for saying that?
For one thing, it's past tense, not future. It's already done.
It's already done. And what does that mean, that it's already done?
It's accomplished. It's under his feet.
What is accomplished? She's saying, Jesus overcame the world. It's already done. It's finished. What's finished?
What he died on the cross, that overcame the consequences of sin eternally. It gave us redemption.
So, how does overcoming the consequences of sin relate to the tribulations of life?
What you're looking for is defeated tribulation.
Say it again.
He defeated tribulation
Yes, how? And what does it mean that he defeated it?
because he was perfect.
Yeah, he did it because he's perfect, but what does it mean that he defeated it? Do we still have it?
Yes.
Did he defeat it?
We have a
Then
way-
why is it still here?
We have a way to deal with it.
Okay. Okay. Forgiven, right? Grace abounds, that's true.
18, for the sufferings of this world are nothing compared to what we have coming.
There you go.
He left it behind. He said, I already beat it. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Just don't.
2 Corinthians 4. You can't even imagine what's up there. This is nothing compared to that. Somebody over here, go ahead.
The end result of sin was going to be eternal death,
Mhm.
separation from God. And tribulation led to that until Jesus died. Now the end result is to be with God, even though the tribulation is still here.
I
So
think
to
he gives us
defeat it-
hope.
Mhm.
He gives us hope.
Yeah, we have hope. We are not hopeless people. In fact, Paul said, 1 Corinthians 15, verse 19, if in this world only we have hope, we are of all men the most to be pitied. Because this life here does not offer hope, because it's a world of tribulation.
When we overcome sin, it's not going to erase potentially what happened.
Right.
But it has prepared us, if we learn from it, that in the future, that sin faces us again. We've already overcome it. We know what the solution is to avoid it, to not make it happen again, or let it happen again. So in that sense, that's a victory because we learn by that event.
When Jesus overcame the tribulations of the world, what is the purpose behind the tribulations that exist? What's the purpose behind it?
Preparation.
Well,
And a testing ground, too, for God to see our hearts,
but
which way are we going to go.
that is a purpose. That's not the purpose.
It makes us stronger.
That's a purpose.
Causes us to see,
Also a purpose.
gives us faith.
Let me give you help. Where does tribulation come from?
Sin.
What?
Sin.
The devil, right? Okay. What is the purpose then of tribulation? If the devil brings it on, what's the purpose?
Because the devil doesn't want to be the only one in hell.
There you go.
He wants to lead us and keep us there.
That's it.
But with Jesus, it's not just a ticket to life or ticket
Right.
to heaven. It's like a book of tickets where you have this you can do for this situation so that you're not stuck in the darkness that Satan prepared.
That's very true.
I was just going to say that is we're all faced with tribulations,
Right?
and evil is there present in front of us every day. But through our belief in God and our being a child of God,
Yep.
that's how we have overcome the tribulations that face us, by being strong, keeping our faith in God, doing God's plan for us, because at the end, we have the reward of being in heaven with Him. So it's a long battle of tribulation and things that are going to happen. Everything the devil can throw at us will be thrown until we prove to him that, you know, he can't do that. He can't do that to us if we're strong enough. And finally, you know, I don't think it ever goes away, but sometimes that's all.
That's exactly true. The devil, his whole purpose in life is to pull people away from God. And tribulation is as good a thing as he has to try and do that.
But you said the purpose. And really, I've got to have that qualified. The purpose by God or the purpose by the devil? Because there really are. Tribulations serve a purpose for both those entities.
Let me.
One, it's going to destroy. The other, it's going to refine.
Okay. Let me ask it this way. When God created the world, was there a created in that perfect world, did he create tribulation? I don't think so. I don't think so. Satan created it. That's the purpose of it. But God flips the purpose on its head. God takes the thing that Satan wants to use to pull us away from God, and through Jesus, it actually becomes that which can drive us closer to God.
If God is all-powerful, and He is, He could have chosen at the beginning to defeat Satan then. So there had to be a reason why He did the things that He did to let Satan remain in power, if you want to put it that way. There had to be something good for us in the long run.
Well,
And I think it's just what you said. It makes us stronger. It refines us.
I think we're all comfortable, maybe more comfortable, saying that while God did not create tribulation, He knew that tribulation would come, and He prepared us or His world for us to handle that. Had we stayed in the garden, in paradise, could we in paradise, in that garden setting, could we be prepared to be eternally with God? I think so. That's why we were there. But once we left, now we're prepared outside the garden. And so my view that I'm wanting us to adopt in this class is the idea that says tribulation was Satan's weapon to pull us away from God, and through Jesus conquering tribulation, He turned it into something that can draw us closer to God. Now, sometimes it doesn't, right? Some people run. But for those who are willing to be changed and improved by it, it actually pulls us closer to God. And so that, to me, is the powerful lesson that we're looking for here in 1 John 5. And we do that through faith.
3:4 says, suffered so many things in vain, if indeed it wasn't vain, question mark.
Yeah.
So right there, that it's not in vain. When
No,
you
it's-
suffer these things, and Paul, when he recounted everything that happened to him, he actually was saying, I'm glad.
Yeah.
He had reached the ultimate epitome of, I'm perfect, but He was getting pretty close when he said, I'm glad these things happened to me.
They have, as he said, they have fallen out to the furtherance of the gospel. I'm glad that he went to prison, for instance. You know, did I tell my class or did I tell you all about this funny story about Al Morris? You reminded me about the prison when I said it. Just as an aside, he may be listening. This would be cool. Al Morris went to register to vote because there was a member of the church down there who was running for office. He wanted to vote for him. And they denied his voting opportunity. And they said, why? He said, well, your background check says you're a convicted felon. Of course, there's a man in the county with the exact same first, middle, and last name who they had confused it with. But I want to call Al and ask him if he's ready to start a prison ministry. Maybe we can help him with that. It'd be pretty cool. So, Paul said that worked out for the betterment of everything. Now, let's start looking at the Revelation for a minute. Go to the 7 churches of Asia, starting in chapter 2. It is obviously by intention that the word overcome is told to every single church. Each one of them is said, it's told to them, if you overcome. So, I want now to go to the end of the story. Does anybody in here ever pick up a mystery and read the last chapter first? Does anybody ever do that? You do that, Zane? Every now and then. You like to read, you see what the answer is, then you go back and read how you got to it.
I don't make a habit of it, but I do.
Yeah, you have done it. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you've never done it, I never have, but if you've never done it, we're about to. Because we're going to go to the end of the story. The whole purpose of this class is to be overcomers. And so, like God laying out there how great heaven is, so that it will be a draw for us, we're going to go to the end of the story and say, all right, we want to be overcomers. What are we going to get when we overcome? Because these things we deal with are tough. The struggles of life, whether you are in it directly or indirectly through somebody else, they're tough. And so, instead of concentrating at the beginning on how tough things are, I want to concentrate on what can be as the draw to be an overcomer. Let's start looking at these. Chapter 2, verse 7. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give to eat from the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. I want to be an overcomer because I want to eat that fruit. That story in the garden, to me, is always a fascinating one. I know it's the beginning one, but it always fascinates me because it is so human. It is so human. I don't know how many trees and how much fruit was in the garden. I have no idea. But I know God said, you can eat that one, and that one, and that one, and all of those, and look at all of those over there, and look how great they are and wonderful. You can have it, but don't eat that one. And all of a sudden, what happened? What did Satan do? He concentrated on what? Huh? Yes, for the purpose of pulling them away from God. That's the point. And when they ate that tree, then God said, I'm going to take the other one out that you could have had. That tree of life that was in the middle of the garden. I don't know what that meant. There's a lot of speculation about it. It could be that that was the tree planted there so that as they ate of it in their regular diet, they would not die. Now, that's interesting if that's the case, because the minute they sinned, when God said, if you eat of it, what's going to happen? The other tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you eat of it, what's going to happen? In the day you eat of it, you will die. Well, death is described as physical death and spiritual death. I think he was saying spiritual death, separated from God. That's what Satan wanted. That's what he got. But there was a sense in which they also began to die physically because the tree that kept them alive was removed. Now they can't eat from it anymore. And so in that analogy, in that concept, God says, if you overcome, now you get to eat from that tree. Now we all know that heaven is a spiritual place. And so the physical tree that was in the physical garden seems not to be the tree that's going to be there, but it's the same concept. Because once we get there, as long as we eat of that tree, what happens? Never die. It's eternal. What is he saying? If you are an overcomer, what's he saying? What's he telling us about this world and that world? Spiritually, you will not die. Okay? What's he saying about this world in that phrase? We're going to die, but there you go. Whatever happens here is not going to take away that. That's the whole point. And he says, if you want to overcome, if you'll be an overcomer, you get to eat from that tree. And no matter what happens to you in this world, no matter what you have to deal with here, that is always out there for eternity. All right? Number 2. Chapter 2, verse 11. To the church at Smyrna. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He who overcomes shall not be hurt by the second death. What's the second death? What is it? Yes. Yes.
We have a physical death.
Yeah.
We have a decision of live or die for eternity.
Okay. So the second death. What is the concept of death mean? At its base point, what is death? Separation. Right. So what's the second death? Separation from God. Hebrews 2, verse 9. We see Jesus, who was made a little lower than the angels, for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, might taste death for everyone. What's he saying? Why? So what did Jesus do so that we don't have to taste the second death?
His sacrifice gave us the forgiveness of sins.
Sure, but what happened to Jesus?
He was separated for a short time.
Yeah, there you go. He was separated. See, all the ways that we talk about these kinds of things are physical because we're physical people. And to say he was separated for a short time, physically, that's, how do you say, okay, it was 3 seconds, it was 2 minutes, it was 5 hours. Jesus, in his death, tasted separation from God in eternity. And that is it's a hard concept to grasp because we live in time, but he tasted. You're not separated from God in time. He was separated from God when he left time. And so in eternity, he tasted the second death. I don't know what all that means, but I know this. It was terrible. And it was so bad that he would actually ask God before it happened, are you sure we have to do this? Are you sure? Isn't there another way? And when he, as the text says, when he sweat, it was like drops of blood just from the stress on the brow. So I don't know what it means to say he tasted the death that we don't have to taste. But I know it was really, really bad. And it wasn't physical. It was spiritual. It was a taste between him and his Father in eternity. This stuff that happened to him on the earth, it's bad. In a human sense, it's bad. But what he tasted doesn't even rise to the level of discussion with the things that we face and what he even faced on the cross.
Substituting for a radio talk show host, a ranger. He'd been in the military, Secret Service, but he had seen his share of war. And he was talking to somebody who said was 21 years old, and they were talking about death. And he said the 21-year-old was talking about it as if he pretty much knew everything about it. I'm an expert. And he asked this 21-year-old, he said, have you ever seen anybody die? He had to say no. He said, well, I never seen people die. And he said, what's interesting is people, if they are starving and they're dying because they don't have food, they're not asking for food. If they're dying because they didn't have something to drink, they're not asking for water. They're asking for God. He had seen that, and he said even atheists would ask for God because they suddenly realized that the water and the food were past that. I'm getting ready to face God. I need God's help.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
Mike? A bit of a digression, sorry about that. When Jesus did become resurrected, there was even, do you think maybe he was still separated from God for briefly because one of the women couldn't touch him because he hadn't seen God yet? I wonder, was that just a continuation of his separation?
It's a great question, but I think, does the text say that he hadn't seen him or he hadn't gone to him yet? Yeah, I think he's talking there, my opinion is, that he is making a point, not that his body could not be touched, but rather, I think, because what he was doing was, if I remember the story correctly, she's trying to grab on and hold on to him. He says, stop. And I think what he's saying is, don't keep me here. I need to go there.
But he let other people touch him.
That's right. That's right. And so he's making a point. I don't know that it was so much that he was still separated as it was him saying, my job now that I've been resurrected, is not here. My focus is not here anymore. I got to go. And so in a few days, he did, 40 days. And I think that was the message he was sending. Don't try to keep me here. Let me go. I haven't been there yet. Was he still separated? Well, there was a sense in which he was separated when he came to earth. Doesn't Philippians 2 say he emptied himself? Sure, he emptied himself. And so, in a sense, he was separated, but he was more connected to his Father while he was here than we are, but he was also separated because he had to take on an essence that he had never experienced before. Hebrews 5:8 says he learned obedience by the things that he suffered. Isn't it interesting that God, when you talk about things that God can't do, he can't lie, and he doesn't know how to obey. Isn't it interesting? God doesn't know how to obey. How would he do it? Who's he going to obey? So, what?
He obeys his own laws.
It's not so much obey as it is he can't do anything else. Can a horse quit being a horse? No. He's just a horse.
He changed his mind. He can change his mind.
He can change his mind, that's right. But he didn't obey. Jesus learned obedience. And I think part of what being here was to learn in a way that he couldn't as God. And he had to identify with us. So I want to be an overcomer so that I don't have to be concerned about this second death and this separation. Go ahead.
Could we say then that we learn obedience by the things that we say?
There's no doubt about it. We do learn obedience by the things that we suffer. There's no doubt about it. But remember this. In the garden, before sin, did they have commands to obey? Absolutely. So obedience was a part of the creation, but the tribulation to learn obedience was not. Obedience was a part. When he created, he said, you have a job. Your job is to tend the garden and to keep it. He even told Adam, you name all the animals. They had some things to obey. But now, we learn through tribulations often. That's right. Just like Jesus did. Very good. Okay, so if on the other side, we're going to take up here next time, but if you look on the other side in those inappropriate or appropriate things, if you think back to a time that you were in difficulty or you've been around people who were, and people said things that just didn't fit, or things that did fit and were very helpful, if you could give me those, I want to make a list about those kinds of things so that we can use that somewhere down the road to train us to handle the troubles better than saying things. The worst thing you can do to a parent who just lost a child would be to say, God had better use for that child. That's insanity. I mean, that's just, and yet the person who said it, I heard it, thought he was doing right. But that's, why would anybody want to serve a God who said, I'm going to take that child, no matter how much it hurts you, because I got a better job for it? It just doesn't make any sense. So if you think of some things, good or bad, in difficult times that we can put into this, I think it'll be helpful. All right. That all right? Go ahead.
I'm stuck on this statement that's made
Okay.
when God turned away and you said it wasn't a physical death.
It was second death, yes.
Yeah, the second death. So if it's not physical, then it would have to be negative.
Well, it had to be, it certainly included, yes.
Seeing and feeling.
I can't deny that there is something there to that. It is certainly otherworldly. It's spiritual. It's higher, better, other. It's just so much different.
We really don't have to worry about
No, that's the whole point. That is the whole point right there. Yep. I think the whole point of eternal torment certainly will include consciousness, mental. I have no doubt about that. Right. Yep. Yep. That's right. Sure it would. Yeah.
The eternal aspect of that in the 3 days of 3 nights,
Mhm.
right, is something that we overlook. That, to us, it's 3 days.
Yeah, it was in eternity, and that's the hard part to grasp. Yeah, that's exactly right. All right.
Good evening. Prepare ourselves for a song. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. I will seek you in the morning, and I will learn to walk in your ways. And step by step you'll lead me, and I will follow you all of my days. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. I will seek you in the morning, and I will learn to walk in your ways. And step by step you'll lead me, and I will follow you all of my days. And I will follow you all of my days. And I will follow you all of my days. And step by step you'll lead me, and I will follow you all of my days.
You go ahead and start that there. It's just run in the background. It really isn't going to, I probably won't even discuss any of it. It's there for 3 reasons. It kind of gives a background for what I'm going to talk about. You'll find out. But also, if it lasts any longer than I'm talking, that'll be done when it's done. And the third thing is, if it's too boring, it gives you guys a fallback. You can just watch a movie. So, you know, the Ford Model T was amazing for a lot of reasons. It was built in 1/10 the time as what any other automobile at that time, very few at that time, but any other. It was simple. It was rugged. Started production in 1909 and at a cost of $950. People loved them. People loved them. People loved them because they love reliable things. This didn't have a lot of frills, 20 horsepower. It only came in black, trucks, sedans, and panel wagons. It got the job done with a lot of complication, muss, and fuss. But it changed the world because it redefined what reliable really meant. As a former employee, I can tell you that reliability in employees is something I've been looking at for almost my whole career. The best metric of that is the same metric as academic performance. It's the grades. Usually I've found that if a person is willing to be reliable enough to do what they need to do, you know, that's a big part of the metric of the grades in the first place. So, but reliable, how valuable is it to have something in your possession or in your control that's reliable? What a wonderful thing in our amazingly unreliable society sometimes. Reliable is sometimes synonymous with the word faithful. Old Faithful? That doesn't really make sense to me because I would put faithful in with something connected to something who's contemplative, someone who is thinking about hope, has a concept of hope. I can't imagine why something mechanical or inanimate like a geyser would be called faithful. But for the Christian especially, consider how close that the words faithful and reliable are, and from a functional standpoint, faithful and reliable. You could be, Derek. You could be called, more likely be called Old Faithful as a Christian than a geyser. But where is reliable in our church activities? Where's reliable? What's that look like in church service? What's reliable look like? Please don't let me offend anybody. I'm as guilty as you all in many of these things. Teachers and co-teachers, are you there before students? Do you always plan your lesson well? Do you always have a plan, a contingency for your absence? Deacons, can you be counted on to do your part, what your role is? Will you be reliable? Christian friendships, not dependent. Is that thing over? Did I go too long? Play it again. I think you got the short one. I actually wanted the longer, but that's okay. I gave him 2. Christian friendships, not dependent on the mood, on your personal mood, or your personal daily schedule, or the difficulty of your day. Side doors, are they open before services? Is the building clean, bathrooms and all? Are we taking care of our people? Are we ministering in whatever way that we have been assigned, or what would be we would consider our duty? Are we reliable? I can assure you these acts are appreciated. I think if everybody had a collective voice right now, they would say, thank you for reliable people in our lives, and especially the Christians. Thank you for the things you do. I know when Ed was here, everybody was thanking him. Everybody appreciated him. What a hole when he left us. What a hole. We've had to fill a lot of it, and we've had to become reliable. Let's all try to be more reliable participants in the work of the church. Please, if there's anything that you can do, that we can help, anything that we can do to help you, if you would like to give yourself to Jesus Christ in baptism, please do that at this time while we stand and sing.
When the trumpet of the Lord shall sound, and time will be no more, and the morning rays turn bright and fair, the saved diverse shall gather over on the other shore, and the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, 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 I'll be there. On the bright incline this morning, when the dead in Christ shall rise, and the glory of his resurrection share, when his chosen ones shall gather to their home beyond the skies, and the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, 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 I'll be there. Let us labor for the Master from the dawn till setting sun. Let us talk of all his wondrous love and care. When all of life is over and our work on earth is done, and the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, when the roll is called up yonder, the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there.
Good evening. Okay, way of announcements I've got for tonight is one Joe just handed me is please pray for Braden Andrews, Joe Abernathy's great-grandson, bitten by a dog in the face and is in the hospital in Houston, Texas. And Scott Morris, the son of Al Morris, had a cancerous tumor removed from his bladder. So we need to keep all these in our prayers. Natalie May had surgery last week to install a catheter in her chest cavity so the fluid around her heart could be drained. She resumed the chemotherapy treatments today in Atlanta. Keep her in our prayers also. As far as all the sick that I've got, and this is the Marriage and Family Seminar for Saturday, March the 23rd, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Lunch will be served. It's VBS-style classes for 8th grade and younger. And our RSVP is via lobby sign-up, Facebook, or website. If you have any questions, see Mark or Abby Derringer. And we rely on the college students again, of course. So college students and any others who can help, please set up for preschool tomorrow. We do need to set up the library. I think I got that right tonight. Okay. All right. I think Ben Wright has our prayer.
Let's pray together. God, we're grateful for another week that we can come together to learn from your word, to study from it, and to grow together as Christians. We pray for this congregation that we continue to grow close to each other, close to you, that we would walk with one another and rely on one another, and that we would learn to love one another better and to become more like you every day. We pray that you would help us in our everyday lives through our struggles as we work, as we go to school, as we learn. Pray that you'd help us to be better human beings, better Christians, that we could influence those who are around us, and that we could all have the goal in mind of someday spending eternity with you. We are mindful of those who could not be with us this evening, who are suffering from ailments and who may be sick or other reasons that they couldn't be with us tonight. We pray that you would be with them, that you would be with us, that we could be lights to them, that we could help them in any way that we might be able to. Thank you so much for sending your son to die on the cross for us, and it's in his name that we pray. Amen.